We're ready to go. We're on. All right. Good evening and welcome to our regular council meeting of March the 6th. I'd like to begin the meeting by acknowledging that we are in the traditional territory of the Anishinaabe peoples in the Robinson-Huron Treaty Area and wish to recognize the neighboring community of Dokis First Nation. While we meet today, I would like to take a moment to acknowledge the importance of the lands which we each call home. We do this to reaffirm our commitment and responsibility in improving relationships between nations and to improving our own understanding of local Indigenous peoples and their culture. From coast to coast, we acknowledge the ancestral and unceded territory of all the Inuit, Métis, and First Nations people that call this land home. And with that, I need a resolution to adopt the agenda. Moved by Willie and Roger. All those in favor? Thank you. Any disclosure of pecuniary interest? There are no delegations tonight. There is nothing under 6.1 general government, and we will go to finances, presentation of our final draft 2024 budget. So Mark, I'll turn it over to you and then to Mark F after.
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor. So, Madam Mayor, members of council, staff, senior staff, here we are again, a year later, presenting our budget. You'll see in your agenda package, we have an agenda of the topics, so we'll touch base. And this year, I'll do the preamble, and then we'll let our treasurer come up to talk about the financial details. Do we have the presentation to put on? And welcome to those joining us virtually during this annual budget presentation for 2024. So just to give members of the public a general history, that back in November, we started to work this process, and you'll see on the next page the time, dates, and length of time that we've been working with council's leadership and the leadership of the managers and senior staff. So we're on March 6th, we're presenting our final budget deliberations. We started off the process with council back in December. And basically what we do in the December meeting is we just review our priorities, review some of our challenges, some of the uncontrollable costs that form part of the 2024 budget. Some of these topics I'll touch upon is the waste management, environmental operations, including the landfill capacity and curbside recycling. Some of the capital projects, including Montague-Guérin, the culvert replacement and road rehabilitation. The sewer infrastructure projects that have been ongoing. Good news is there's a window of opportunity for applications that staff is currently working on and will be presented to council in the upcoming council meetings. The projects at the municipal complex in Arena with the building roof and the facade repairs. The proposed addition at the Arena to house the food bank and also to increase capacities for users in including accessibility with 2 additional change rooms. Human resources, our benefit increases, inflation cost increases, and our challenges with succession planning that are coming up. Our continued challenges with liability insurance, and the continued increases in our board levels, which include the health unit, DSAB, MPAC, Sudbury East Planning Board, and the library board. Overall inflation challenges in terms of operating capital expenses that continue to rise. And then we talked about our capital reserves in terms of vehicles and equipment in our buildings, including the tandem truck and our landfill compactor, which were approved in 2023 budget, but we are to receive the tandem truck in the upcoming week. And we're hopefully the compactor should be in hopefully by June, I think, Kev? Somewhere in that August. Those were ordered over a year ago, just to give you the example of challenges that we're facing at that point in time. And again, we received a decrease in our major funding from the province in our Ontario Municipal Partnership Fund, and that was a decrease of just over 16,000. Some of the actual costs and the costs in terms of percentages, the treasurer will go over once we go through those things. We talked about the Seniors Development Housing Project. Good news, on the weekend, we received word that our financing has been put into place. We've received verbal confirmation of our entrance to Highway 64, which is great news. And then if all goes well, we did sign the contract as per council's direction. We had it reviewed with a lawyer. And we should be starting construction late May, early June. So the building department should be receiving the building permit applications along with all the necessary studies of geotechnical drainage and all of those nice things that need to accompany the building permit under our new bylaw for development. The new SEBS shared services agreement, which I won't talk on, but we have Kevin and Andrea here who will be presenting the new way of going forward with doing business. Basically, the same information that was shared with the council in December back in February 1st. So good news. And I'll let them discuss that later on after our budget presentation. And then we keep talking about continued pressures from the community to invest in community projects such as the trail system, the beautification projects, the horticultural society. So those are continued pressures on municipal council in terms of supporting these various projects. Based on all of this information and the data and numbers that were shared, council all agreed that the same level of services should remain in place and directed staff to go back to the table and try to arrive within a reasonable tax levy increase. And that direction was given between 5 to 8%. So we took that directive from council, went back to the managers and the treasurer and came up with the final document that was presented February 1st, of which we're going to share the results of with the general public today. So on that note, I've talked enough already. I'll turn it over to Mark to go over our unaudited actuals for 2023 and move into the various department requests for 2024. Any questions so far? No? Perfect. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mark. For the 2023, just current year, we had a total revenue budget of a little over $11 million. Our actuals are a little under $11 million for a variance of about 170,000. The big difference there is because we had a budget of 375,000 for the NOHFC for the addition to the arena. That did not materialize, so that's where the big drop is. And the total expenses, we had a budget of 9.8 million. We attained 9.8, so a little variance of 103,000. So a little reduction there. You have to remember that we have projects, so we have a budget for projects, and if it don't get spent, we defer to the next year. So that's a lot of this variance is related to projects. So a net of $1.1 million. Amortization is the same as budget, 1.1. Landfill post closure costs, same thing, for 40,000, same as budget. Capital additions, we had a budget of $4.8 million. We spent 2.4 million. So a variance of 2.3 million. Out of that, there's a little over $2 million that deferred to next year. That's part of this 2024 budget. Transfer through deferred revenues, we had a budget of 465 and our actual is 456. The little difference is because of North's funding. The interest is capitalized. Whatever interest we make, they deduct that from their grant amount. Transfer to reserves, we have a budget for operating 27,000 we have 23,000, so a little variance of 4,000 capital because well, we have 1.3 million of budget, both the same for actual, so a little the variance of 23,000. Landfill post-closure cost, 40,000. For transfer from reserves operating, we have a budget of 289,000. We're at 274,000, so a little variance of 15,000. Capital, we had a budget of $3.7 million of transfer from reserves. Because we didn't spend all our capital budget, we only spent $1.6 million of reserves, so a variance of 2,250,000. The use of general surplus, we had a budget of 375,000. We spent 150,000 of that. Big difference is because of waste management, we didn't spend as much as we thought for engineering, so it's a multi-year project. Principal long-term debt, 137,000, so a balanced budget of 0. So before going into the specifics, on the big, we'll go with the big picture. So of the tax levy increase, so we have uncontrollable costs, and then we start off right off the bat of 8.14%, comprised of the curbside recycling transitional funding at 2.47, wages and benefits 2.31%, local board levies, we have an increase of 1.38% in levy. Use of operating reserves that we had budgeted in 2023 of winter control and building control. So that's 0.92%. And the the Ontario Municipal Partnership Fund grant reduction of 0.3% and insurance increase of 0.76. All those numbers equal 8.14. So if you go to the next slide, you start with the 8.14. Net increase in the operating budgets submitted, we had an increase of 1.14%, increase in amortization on capital assets of 2.19. So we started before we had a second meeting with the manager of 11.47. So we had to work the budget to reduce that. So we adjusted the budget. We decreased operating budget by 0.46%, and also the amortization and submitted capital remove was 1.38%, so a reduction. So we're at 9.63%. So then we use the working capital reserves to try to offset a portion of the increase in local board levies and also insurance of 50,000. So that equals 0.92%, and also the use of modernization fund to help finance the transitional curbside recycling. That's 2.22. Which equates, if you do all that math, equates to the tax increase of 6.49%. So we'll now go to the details of that 6.49%. So general government revenues, we have a decrease of $128,050, and total expenses, we have a decrease of $28,606, sorry, for a net of a decrease of 99,444. So for expenses or for revenue, we'll start with revenues. There's some projects that have finished in 2023. Strategic visioning, asset management software, so 51,000. There's a reduction in bank interest income on bank account because we're going to spend quite a bit of reserve money this year. About $85,000. We forecast a decrease in the interest on the bank account. And there's a couple items which explains the rest for the revenues. For expenses, we have wage increase, including health benefits, $28,000. Increase in insurance premiums, $40,650. We have reduction in because of projects, 91,000, and then various smaller amounts, which total the 28,606. Am I going too quickly or no? You good? So we go to fire department. Total revenues, an increase of $5,098. Total expenses, an increase of $34,898. So the big thing is the expenses. There's a $25,000 budgeted for community risk assessment as prescribed by provincial law. That's funded by the general surplus. The rest is all small amounts. If you go to the next slide, Mel. So OPP, there's a reduction in contract of a 6,300. And because it's a net zero budget, there's going to be a decrease in that, in the tax amounts collected by from taxpayers of $6,300. Equates to about $1.50 or $2 per property. And emergency measures, there's in and out this $5,000 difference for revenues and expense related to COVID funding. Net zero change. For bylaw services, revenues, we have an increase of 17,217 for revenues, an increase in expenses of 11,251. For revenues, there we started the administrative monetary policy penalties, the AMPs, in 2023. So we budgeted $10,000 for this initiative. Increase in bylaw costs for shared services of $9,000. And for expenses, it's some wage stuff and materials. For building permits and inspection services, so the big difference here, well, total revenues increase of $66,000, the expenses an increase of $98,997. It's a lot of in and out because our admin support is 100% costed to the SEBS program. It used to be a portion, now she's working 100% for SEBS. So now all her salary is going in SEBS, and we're gonna collect that money also from SEBS. And because there's increase of expenses, there's going to be an increase in shared costs to the 3 or 4 municipalities, depends on who participates in the SEBS agreement. For public works, total revenues increase of 9,043, expenses an increase of 55,436. Will increase it just for revenues is the aggregate resource revenues for the pits, $10,000 for expenses. There's a slight decrease in wages because position retired in 2023 and the salaries were reallocated to other departments. There's an increase in volume of aggregates required, about $20,000 for maintenance of roads and culverts. There's an increase in maintenance costs for culverts of $20,000. Rental of loader for maintenance of Shaw Road for the pit, $12,500. Rebuild of transverse units for 2 trucks, $10,000, and an increase of amortization expense because there's a new tandem being bought in 2024. For environmental, landfill and drains, revenues, an increase of 33,475, expenses a decrease of $15,803. So for revenues, there's a reduction in modernization funding used to finance the curbside recycling, about $10,000 less than last year. There's an increase in revenues for waste diversion for recycling, hazardous waste, and also sale of scrap metal, $58,000. And there's a reduction of revenues due to the cancellation of commercial bin pickups in 2023, $15,000. For expenses, there's the director was retired in 2023 and salaries reallocated to other departments. There's a reduction in the engineering services from last year because it's a multi-year initiative, $25,000. Curbside recycling expanded to all municipalities. There's a slight increase of 15,000. A reduction in contracted services for municipal drains and building maintenance of 18,000. And they were buying a new landfill compactor, so the amortization of this is 27,000 a year with other assets.
Mark,
Yes.
may I ask a question? When you're talking about the amortization of a new thing, so are we putting $27,000 away a year to amortize? Is that what that means?
It's the big portion of this is landfill. Yes, we're adding amortization expense because the asset has to be amortized over 20 years.
Over 20, because.
So just the landfill compactor is 50,000, but there's some other stuff that was already amortized. That stopped being amortized. So that's why the net is 27,000, but the
So that's
landfill
for
is 50.
all of the equipment.
Yeah.
Not just for the new compactor. Okay,
No, the major one is a compactor, but there's
right.
there's other stuff there that.
And that would be the same thing then for the new tandem truck?
Yes.
Okay, so
there's,
it's all the,
Yes, what happened is
the
for
equipment
Public
that we have.
Works, yes, for Public Works,
Okay.
there were some roads that were built like 40 years ago that are fully amortized in
Right.
2023. So the net is, that tandem is about 50,000 a year, but
Yeah.
because we had a reduction in other expenses,
Right,
yeah.
okay, thank you.
For sewers now. Here, there's sanitary sewers and storm sewers. Sanitary sewers is a budget of 0. So the users pay for the service. The taxpayers do not pay it in the general levy. And there's storm sewers, that's part of the overall operations of the municipality. So revenues, we're forecasting an increase of 13,742, and expenses an increase of 12,478. So if you look at just sanitary sewers, to balance the budget, we need to increase the rate or the user fee from $375 to $425 dollars per user of the service. So that's going to generate about 13,700. And there's going to be amortization of new capital purchases in the sanitary sewers, about 5,000. And there's also storm sewer flushing over 2 years of $7,500. So health and social services, that's DSAB and public health, the major components. Revenues, an increase of $5,000. That's related to cemeteries. And expenses, there's an increase of 7,212. That's a public health levy increase of 16,829. DSAB and ambulance services levy increase of 31,607, and a social and family services DSB DSAB levy increase of 17,276. For recreation, we have a reduction in revenues of 633,677. The majority of that is capital related. And expenses, there's an increase of 40,532. For revenues and expenses, projects are finished in 2023 or deferred to the next year. And there's also, we're talking about the NOHFC, it was budgeted last year. This year it's not budgeted. So there's a reduction of 375,000. So it's a capital grant that was budgeted last year. It's not going to occur, or we hope it occurs, but it's not budgeted for this year. And we also have the multi-year capital funding for rehabilitation of the ACC. The reduction, 210,000. It's another multi-year capital project. For expenses, we have an increase in in wages, 64,100. There was a new position created last year. It was just a reallocation of other wages money. There was a retirement, and then there was a new manager created or hired for recreation. French River Public Library, there's an increase of levy of $5,000 and some smaller stuff. Just to let you know, we're going to post this presentation on the website after this presentation. So planning and development, revenues, there's no changes. Expenses, an increase of $1,600. So really there's an increase in Sub-East Planning Board levy of 3,000. There's some little small decrease of 1,377 for the rent expense for French River Cultural Industries. Mel, next slide, please. Taxation and operating grant. Total revenues, a little slight decrease of $3,900. Reduction in operating grant, the Ontario Municipal Partnership Fund of 16,400. There's an increase in interest and penalties on taxes due as per historical trends of $10,000. And there's some smaller adjustments of $2,400. So we're looking at unfinished projects of 2023. That was part of the December resolution to defer some capital projects to next year. to 2024. So there's municipal complex fascia rehabilitation, 75,000. Rehabilitation of sidewalks, 120,000. Shanty Bay road fixes, 30,000. There's flagpole and bollards for public works building of $23,000. There's the sewer lift stations, St. David panel upgrade and hydro at Lagoon for 80,000. Arena roof and fascia rehabilitation at 300,420. Joe Chartin Park, $55,000. Shanty Bay Wharf rehabilitation, 40,000. Signage at St. Charles and Monetville, that's related to installation of signs, 60,100. And the purchase of tandem truck and landfill compactor, 1.3 million. Total of to be used in 2024 of 2,047,470. For projects 2024, sorry, landfill building expansion, $230,000. Wellington and Joe Chartin Parks, we have 80,000. Beautification project, walking trails and concert series, 25,000. We have the municipal complex, arena and public works, garage roof fascia, $506,000. Lagoon dredging, 75,000. Rehabilitation of the Albans Community Center, $262,000. Again, the tandem truck and landfill compactor, 1.3 million, and then the highway signs of 16,100. So those amounts are included in the capital budget. So the big things, the roads, we're maintaining $610,000 in our budget. There's a garage, public works garage roof rehabilitation, 130,000. The tandem truck, 345. There's the hoist for public works garage. On the second page, there's a landfill compactor, 962,000. The landfill building expansion, 285. Alban Community Center, 262, and then arena roof rehabilitation, 300,000 for a total capital budget of 3,574,782. How it's funded, there's transfers from reserves, 3,302,577, and the rest is capital grants, donations, and parkland reserves for $272,205. You have the 5-year road plan, capital road plan. So there's 6 roads that are going to be rehabilitated next year. Next one. So the reserves of 2024. So we're starting with about $5 million in reserves. And with all the projects we have in the books, we're anticipating ending about at $3 million. So we're using about $2 million of reserves this year. That's why our interest on bank is going to be lower. So operating reserves, next page, Mel. That's the total reserves. Operating reserves, we're using $50,000 of working fund reserve to help fund a portion of the BERT and insurance increases. Signage, there's using $12,423 to pay a portion of the decorative highway signs. Planning and zoning, $10,000. That's for the official plan study. And the sewer operating reserve fund, we're still using $11,867, even if we increase the rates. So we're gonna have a small balance at the end of for sewers at $3,650. For deferred revenues, deferred parkland revenues are starting at $126,000. We're spending $47,688. In there, there's the Wally-Lamontagne Park, $32,688. Bay Ad Trail, $5,000. JC Park, Joe Chartin Park for $10,000. So we're anticipating ending balance of about $84,000 for the deferred revenue for parkland. Modernization funds, we're starting at $236,000. We're using $120,000 for curbside recycling. So we're anticipating ending at about $116,000. For COVID funding, we're using $50,000 for to pay for operating costs if needed, and also for a portion of the inflation and the pressures arising from the overall effects of COVID around the world from the supply chain. And for Montigny rehabilitation, we're increasing our reserves or our deferred revenue for Montigny of $474,000, 103. That's composed of three funds: gas tax, the NORDS funding, and also the OCIF funding. So we're going to end Montigny with $1.7 million in deferred revenue. So this is the summary. We have total revenues of budget of $10,450,798 for expenses. Budgeted $10,161,212. So a net of operation from operation of $289,586. There's amortization expense that's you have to add back $1.2 million. There's landfill post-closure cost, 40,000. There's capital, the capital budget, 3,574,782. There's transfers to reserves and deferred revenues that we just seen, $1.8 million. Transfers from reserves, we're using 3,374,444, and then we're using general surplus of 303,260 to help fund the projects on the right, listed on the right. And there's a principal portion of long-term debt, 141,349. So there's a net of 351,704, which equates to levy increase of 6.49%. So what does that mean on the taxes? So in the first example, there's we use the average assessment per impact. So the first example is assuming your property value is $167,000 and you're on the sewer system. There was no increase in your assessed values in 2023. There's going to be an increase of $123.88 over what you were paying in 2023. So the big portion here is $50 for the sewer, and the balance is related to taxes, $73.88, which equates to 3.71% tax increase, apart from the sewer. For the average waterfront, single-family detached dwelling of $272,000, there's an increase, it equates to an increase of 3.94% on your tax bill. You go on to the next page now. If your assessed value is $400,000, your increase in taxes is going to be 4.07%. Again, the municipal portion of your tax is only a portion. So there's the education taxes that's not going to increase. And also there's OPP, there's a slight decrease. So overall, your tax bill is 4.07% increase. If your property was valued at $650,000, there'd be an increase of 4.17%. So now for the pie chart, where your tax dollars is spent, it's similar to last year. So that's all the departments, and it's all the percentages equal 100%. It's just where it's all the where you spend your dollars. And you have the second pie graph, which is for the revenues. There's a little bit of changes here because last year we had an NHFC grant that was budgeted. This year it's not. So our grant funding went down and our taxation went up a little bit because of that. I think taxation went up from 48 to 52%.
Mark, the federal funding that we get, is that the gas tax from the feds?
We get
Okay.
gas tax, and the majority is the gas tax, and also there's Albin Community Center.
Oh,
There's a
right,
portion that's
right.
federal
Yeah,
there.
from the project. Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay, got it.
and the next slide is again assuming $250,000. It's the same. It's just in dollar instead of percentages. So this is the dollar value of your taxes if your assessed value is $250,000. So the history of taxation, that gives you an idea of where from 2018 to 2024 for the tax the municipal tax portion of your tax bill. So we went from 2.2 to $2,200. Now we're at 23.49. And you see on the bottom, that's the education. It's been staying the same since I arrived. So since 2020. So before that, every time there was an increase, there was a decrease in the education. Now it's there's no changes. So any questions?
Any questions from council? No. Thank you very much, Mark, and all the departments for putting this together again. Another year under our belts, just about. So this goes for a vote next meeting,
Yeah, it'll come back for a vote in March 20th.
March 20th, okay. And if
So-
members of the public have any questions, they can send them in prior to the meeting.
So just a little footnote before we move on to the next subject. This was a very difficult year for taxes and for operations, as you can see. And I think the staff and the leadership from mayor and council understanding where we're at and trying to keep our services at the same level. We were able to keep it fairly within the directive of council, and I'm very proud of that. And I want to thank the managers and the senior level managers for arriving at these solutions for the betterment. As you can see, the one note I'll also say is assessments have been frozen now since 2020. Yeah, well, they did implement them, but they weren't being increased as of 2020. So as you can see, our tax rates have been slowly, gradually increasing. So once the assessments come back into fruition, those tax rates should steadily come down.
And did MPAC say they were doing them this year? I thought they said they were not doing it this year, right?
No, not happening this year,
Not happening
not
this
in
year.
2024. So yeah, that's exactly correct, Councillor Wenborn. Is the province dictates it, and we just play with what the rules that we are given. So again, thank you to everybody. Thank you to mayor and council, and we look forward to implementing all of our projects this year, and hopefully being able to find contractors to do the work. We have a lot of big things on the go.
Well, again, thank you to the entire team for putting it together. I know it's really difficult. And hopefully maybe next year we'll get some reprieve, though I wouldn't hold my breath. So we'll continue on. There's no report from Public Works or Environmental Services, nor is there any report from Recreation and Community Services and Emergency and Protection Services. So we'll go directly into Building Planning and Development, and I'll turn it over to Andrea and to Kevin.
Thank you. So the report in front of you was brought forward because the municipality of Marks-Day Warren had approached the 3-member municipalities of the Sudbury East Building and Bylaw Service to see about the possibility of rejoining the shared service. So information was brought to councils in late 2023. All the current members of SEBS expressed interest in this type of negotiation. So this report is to bring council up to date on exactly where the service is today and what it would look like adding another member to the service. So it became kind of a review of everything we've been doing since 2017. It's a fairly long report. Some additions have been made to it for you. You're the last municipality I'm reporting to. So this has been before St. Charles, Killarney, and Marks-Day Warren. So far, each municipality has positively supported staff's recommendations. So I'll go through the report. I'll take some moments to ask for questions, but if you have any, please, of course, raise your hand. And if there's any specific issues you'd like to address as I'm going through. So when I was writing this report, I really did want to go back to the history because not every member sitting on council has been here since 2017. Even going back to 2011, there was a shared service between Killarney and St. Charles for just building services. 2017, there was a need for building services across the 4 municipalities of Sudbury East. And the idea of bringing in bylaw was introduced as well, because at the time French River was the only municipality that had a dedicated bylaw officer. There was a change in 2021 when Marks Day Warren decided to work on their own. And here we are today. And we're not only looking at including building and bylaw, but also animal control services. So as you can see from page 2 of the report, page 4 of your agenda, there's some information there to show you how there's been changes to building and bylaw over the last 7 years. We have seen an increase from 2017 to 2023 of over 100 building permits. I did include Marks Day Warren in these numbers because I was able to get that information. And you'll see an increase in bylaw complaints as well. And this was only for Killarney, St. Charles, and French River. So just over 40 in 2018 and pushing close to 100 in 2023. This does not include anything for animal control because this wasn't a part of the shared service all the way through, nor for specifically waste management concerns in the municipality of French River. So it's been a busy department and getting busier every year. I've included some information about how we administer the service because there was questions from other councils. Based on a shared service report that came out in 2017 from KPMG, it was recommended that building, bylaw, and animal control would be ideal candidates for shared service. And we decided as a group, staff and councils at the time, that a direct delivery model with a weighted calculation between municipalities would work the best, as opposed to going with a separate board. So that was a question that was coming up with other councils. Why did we not go with a board? There is a list of reasons why, mainly because adding a layer of bureaucracy and cost didn't seem like anyone wanted to get involved in that idea. Whereas working with the direct delivery model coming from basically one municipality managing the shared service agreement and billing out to the other municipalities was thought to work and has been shown to work over the last 7 years. So we do recommend that we continue with the direct delivery model and not move towards an idea of forming a board that would direct the shared service. If there's any questions on why we are not looking to open up to a board, I'll open up to council quickly now. Perfect. Thank you. I have also attached the shared service agreement to this report for council to review. The shared service agreement is really what directs the entire department. Each council has their say. Each council decides to move into this agreement, and then the person who runs the department will always refer back to the shared service agreement to ensure that everyone's needs are being met through the department. Also to make sure that no one municipality has control over the department. The shared service agreement is really where we work out our concerns and make sure that the way the department runs, everyone has a say in how it's happening. So I did ask, I wanted to include it so that council could have a look at what our shared service agreement looks like today to remind yourselves, or if you hadn't read it before, but also keeping in mind that once this council decides if they'd like to move forward with Marks Day Warren, there will be changes made to the shared service agreement and then brought forward at a later date for you to review. So it was a good time to look at where we are today. Also going through this report, I wanted to let council know where we are as a service. Again, coming through the last 7 years, we've become a professional department with proficient enforcement officers who are meticulously equipped and trained. If you haven't seen our vehicles or the way we outfit our enforcement officers, I wanted to provide some pictures to let you know that when we are out in the community, the look to the way our enforcement, the way we present ourselves lends it to gaining respect from members of the public. Also, we've worked to provide correct equipment to our officers working out in the field. So you'll notice the protective vests that were purchased, the way we have proper cages that are secured properly in the back of the trucks for animal control, and how the trucks are really outfitted to be moving offices so that information is available to the officers while they're out in the field. So these are all investments that we've made into the department to make it a well-run and efficient service. So speaking to the changes that we're seeing in the department, I mentioned the increase in building permits and bylaw complaints that we're starting to see, but also that we've made changes to help offset the cost of the department, mainly through the short-term rental licensing program, travel trailer licensing, and the administrative monetary penalty systems. Also, revenues will also, or the sharing of the cost with adding another member, Marks Day Warren, into the shared service will also help to deflect any increased cost that we're anticipating. So it really is a good time to be working with a fourth municipality because we are seeing the need for more funding into the service. For example, the increased need for administrative support, which Mark Fleury mentioned earlier in his budget presentation. SEBS used to only pay for a portion of administrative support, but with the increased calls and the more efficient way that we're running the service, we really do need a full-time administrator with the program to cover all municipalities. We're taking increased inquiries for licensing and permits. We have organized ourselves to be a one phone number department. So each municipality, each council, and these are coming, will be able to provide a direct contact phone number to any resident that has any issues to help navigate and direct all complaints to one particular office, as opposed to trying to figure out how to make a complaint or get advice. Having that one point of contact has made it a much more efficient system. It's allowing us to get information to our enforcement officers more quickly, which is helping us follow our complaint policy more efficiently, and also allowing for more follow-up with complainants, especially on the bylaw side. We are looking to be the central licensing application intake, or for intake and review, not just for building permits, but also for short-term rental and travel trailer licenses and any other licenses that we may work towards in the future, if we get there. And so the central bylaw complaint intake and complaint policy compliance really does come back to that one phone number and the dedicated administrator for the department. And there are other projects that we would like to work on and that need administrative support, like reviewing older open building permits, closing open orders to comply, comparing existing buildings on properties with MPAC assessment to make sure that we are capturing any buildings that are built without permits or haven't been properly assessed on the property. And also trying to work with more current open building permits to help residents to close these permits as opposed to leaving them open for years at a time, trying to be more proactive to help close off our files. It helps our department. It helps make sure that assessment is properly reported. And it helps with the last minute phone calls of people who are selling properties and then finding out that they have open building permits that need to be dealt with. We're trying to clean up those issues within the department. So because we've seen more bylaw complaints, we're seeing an increased need for bylaw enforcement. Up until 2023, SEBS was only charged, well, last year they were charged $53,000 from the municipality of French River into SEBS for bylaw officer and vehicle charges. This was always an estimated number. But because we're implementing so many different licensing programs, because we're seeing more complaints, and because we're seeing more complaints in different municipalities, at first, when we move into a municipality, there's not a lot of complaint, but once people figure out that there's a bylaw department, we start seeing a lot more complaints. We anticipate the need for another bylaw officer to be able to help with this, and that the full cost of bylaw should be within the SEBS agreement, because everyone is seeing more complaint, everyone is seeing more need for bylaw. It should be borne by the shared service and not just one municipality. And also, so because we are looking to move to adding another bylaw officer, and this would be able to be budgeted without a huge extra cost implication to the current members of SEBS. if Marks Day Warren joins us, because that fourth municipality will help us to maintain our costs at a similar level of where they are today. The idea of having 2.5 bylaw officers working for the department would also allow for better off-hour enforcement coverage. So weekends in the summer, evenings where noise complaints tend to be more of a problem, we'll be able to provide a better service and better enforce our bylaws because we'll have people available at times when the bylaws tend to be broken. And of course, depth of staffing. If we have, one of the best advantages to having this shared service is that you have a deep team of people who can help to cover absences. We all struggle within small municipalities to maintain a staffing level that if someone goes on vacation, their job doesn't completely stop. Within the SEBS agreement, we have multiple bylaw officers, we have multiple building inspectors, we have multiple people who can run the administration of the program as well. So it helps to keep consistency of service across the board. Any questions at this point? Okay. So page 8 of the report, or 10 of 42 in your agenda, there's a bylaw review of the bylaws that have been recently updated, really since 2017. And this one focuses more on bylaws that we would be asking the municipality of Marks Day Warren to implement to help with enforcement. And there has been a suggestion, and it will be presented to council and also to Marks Day Warren, that because of the amount of work that was done in the last 2 years that they were not present in the shared service, they may be asked to invest a bit more into the upfront costs of changing over and coming into the shared service, because there will be a lot of time invested on projects that should have already been probably implemented. So that's been discussed within the CAOs and with staff. So that's also going to be part of the negotiation as well, just to help the municipalities who are already a part of the shared service recover some of the costs of what they've already invested in staff and time. From there, we move on to organizational issues that need to be addressed. And these issues need.
Sorry,
Oh,
Andrea,
yeah, of
just a
course.
quick question.
Mhm.
The bylaws that the other municipalities have, are they the same as ours? Or very similar? I know the short-term one, Killarney, is a little bit different, right?
They are all very similar,
Okay,
but at the end of the day, each council has the ability to change any bylaw
Yeah.
that they see fit. For the most part, especially the way we communicate with councils, they can understand that our recommendations are based on what we think would be best as far from an enforcement,
right.
point of view. But yeah, there's definitely differences between the 3
But
municipalities.
they're not so significant that our bylaw officers have to learn 4 different types of bylaw in each of the municipalities.
No.
Okay.
Okay, so to organizational issues to be addressed. Now, these organizational issues need to be addressed whether Marks Day Warren were joining our shared service or not. You'll see from table 3 on page 11 of 42 of your agenda. This is what our current organizational chart looks like. Because when we started this shared service, nobody knew how this was going to work. At the time, the chief building official and myself as permit services clerk were employed in the municipality of St. Charles. Bylaw officer Kevin Benvenuti was employed in French River. And because the CBO was the most senior person in the organization at the time, St. Charles was chosen as the managing municipality of the shared service for really no other reason except that's where the CBO worked. As we and a lot of this moving forward in the shared service has been great relationships that we as a department have built between our staff and also between the CAOs and clerks. So everyone understands how things are supposed to work. Oh, and treasurers, because we deal with 2 treasurers, of course. But going forward, it's not a sustainable setup. As you can see from that organizational chart, the chief building official, who is essentially running the shared service, doesn't really have a direct line of management over anyone working besides the building inspector. The shared service is still the main driver of the agreement, but we have even the clerk of the municipality of French River who actually the administrative assistant of SEBS directly reports to. So it's just convoluted, as you can see. And if I were to leave tomorrow, or if Kevin were to leave tomorrow, you would have to explain to someone who is filling in for us, by the way, you technically work for 4 municipalities, you reported this person, but really you don't. It's just way too complicated to be sustainable. So, as you can see from the managing, as I just spoke of, managing of employees becomes difficult. Budgeting and spending tracking, because I work with 2 different treasurers, I'm working with 2 different people's timelines and work schedules. It can be difficult to get an answer as great as our treasurers are. It's just another conversation that you have to have just to see where you are as far as spending throughout the year and negotiation for budget as well. We have 2 different phone systems, 2 different IT providers, and we have 2 different emails that are constantly at odds with each other when we're trying to set up phone transfers or proper email systems. And all beyond that, there's also, after reviewing the way we've set up our department, there's an unrecognized role within the department, which is the director of the department. So again, when we started this shared service, the idea was building is the most important thing, bylaw is an experiment. Bylaw has become much more than an experiment at this point. You see me here, not really much talking about building. We're constantly talking to you about how we're improving our bylaws, the types of enforcement that we need, and the amount of work that we do. Most of my time is spent thinking about bylaws and how they need to be enforced. So that review of bylaw and the way we've worked with all 4 or 3 different councils to advance how bylaws get enforced, it has really become almost the bigger part of my job. So beyond the CBO, it's really a completely different role. So the director of SEBS is the person who is producing standard operating procedures and policies within SEBS and also working with departments in every municipality, for example, driveway numbering, complaint policies, coordination of bylaw implementation across all municipalities, training of office administration or staff or any staff on new procedures related to building or bylaw, mediating escalated issues from bylaw officers after the bylaw manager, reporting to council on building bylaw and department activity, reviewing and preparing budgets, and overseeing spending. So you'll see on page 11, table 4, this is the organizational chart that we are proposing and that we're hoping that council will support. And you can see that we've created that director of SEBS position directly under the shared service agreement because that is who they are answering to, not any particular CAO, whoever the managing municipality CAO is. They're not directing the department. They're there to act as an HR in a human resources role for the director or for the head of the department in case there are any complaints against that person. They need someone to be able to go to, or someone needs to go over their head to complain about any issues with the department. So the CAOs you'll see are off to the left, and they're answering to the shared service agreement, as is the director of SEBS. And right now, the way our staffing works is that then we're proposing that it would be a manager of bylaw with the chief building official at the same level, and then their inspectors and administrative staff under them. Now, that director of SEBS position currently is being done by myself, the chief building official. But if I were to leave and you were to hire someone specifically to act as chief building official, the role of the director of SEBS could really be done by another manager if the manager of bylaw wanted to take it over. But the shared service agreement will have a good description of what that role is. Right now, it's just a role that evolved. And now we want to put it on paper so that it doesn't get lost if staff changes over time. So that would mean that we're proposing that all staff within SEBS would be under one municipality, and we're proposing that that be the municipality of French River. Any municipality could do it. We believe municipality of French River has the best capacity to run the program. Any questions there? Okay. Finally, and this is more of a, well, not really housekeeping, but it's something that will make the department's life easier. Calculations for SEBS payments. So there is a calculation that we made back in 2017 that was based, a weighted calculation based on building permits and area of each municipality and the non-taxable assessment, the non-taxable assessment number. Yeah. As reported from each municipality, so that there would be a fairness to the way everyone pays into the program. It evolved to include a number of hours spent on each building permit, which was a number that was also created to help make the weight more fair. It is a time-consuming number to calculate, and also it's kind of become obsolete. Bylaw has become a much bigger part of the pie as far as time goes, as I explained earlier. And building permits are really not a useful number in trying to figure out everyone's payment. So in the spirit of trying to streamline the process of calculations for everyone's payment, after some research, I believe and would like to recommend that the municipalities support the idea of a percentage based on the roll numbers of each municipality. After speaking to MPAC, it's the easiest number to access at the end of the year. It's instantaneous and available. So you're getting actual year numbers. And if you look at the comparison in table 5, the numbers are not that far off from how we were calculating based on this convoluted and time-consuming calculation. So if only just to stop having to track numbers that almost mean nothing anymore, I would recommend to council just support using roll numbers as the best calculation for the SEBS payments. Also, you'll note that OPP, Sudbury East Planning Board, they use similar numbers in their calculations. So finally, expenses of the department will be increasing as I've reported on. We're looking to increase the time for the administration, increase bylaw officer, but we've also brought up revenue generation so that there is a cost recoverability element. That's through the short-term rental licensing, travel trailer licensing, and the administrative monetary penalty system. And finally, it is a good time to be bringing another member on board, and that's Mark Stay-Warren. So having discussed the budgeted numbers in table 6 with Marc Gagnon and Marc Fleury, there shouldn't be much of a cost difference between what would already be budgeted for 2024 based on the report that you were given earlier this evening, and moving forward either with or without Mark Stay-Warren because of the additional revenue that the department is looking to collect. So there is a recommendation. There are 3 recommendations on the report that we are hoping that this council will instruct staff to review the current shared service agreement and to produce a 5-year shared service agreement that includes French River, Killarney, Mark Stay-Warren, and St. Charles, and that this agreement would include building, bylaw, and animal control services. We're looking to reorganize the SEBS organizational structure as reported in this report, and also looking to accept this draft proposal for budget based on the reviews that I've done with your French River Treasurer and CAO. And that we can move forward with working with Mark Stay-Warren and to provide building, bylaw, and animal control services to all 4 municipalities. And I open up to any questions.
Any questions? Dean?
Mark Stay-Warren now. Mark Stay-Warren now signed in? Have they officially going to be part of it?
Yes, well, they've approved it at their council meeting.
Yeah, that's through you and the mayor. And good news is we received an email yesterday acknowledging that they passed a resolution to get back into the system.
And they've reviewed all this latest. Oh, good. That's good.
That's
Thank
why
you.
the last presentation is French River. We wanted to make sure that everybody else had received the information and had the buy-in going forward.
Any other questions? So, go ahead, Renee.
You were talking about shared services, the trailer bylaw, has it passed in all municipalities? No. No.
through you, there. No, not yet. But within the next couple of months, everything should be passed.
In all of them.
Mhm,
So
yeah.
that'll added hours for sure.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Great job on the report. Very well written and easy to understand.
So tonight, are there resolutions for us, Madam Clerk? Okay. So are we doing it in three or all in one? Okay, good. Good. So the resolution, I would imagine, would read exactly what the three recommendations are. Okay. So I need a mover and a seconder, Bob and Willie. Yeah. Do you want the clerk to read it? Okay, go ahead. Yeah, I got it.
So number one, that, is it one? That council instructs staff to review the current SEBS agreement and produce a 5-year shared service agreement that includes French River, Killarney, Marks-Day Warren, and St. Charles. This agreement shall include building, bylaw, and animal control services, and a timeline for signatures on the agreement would be by the end of March, so by the next meeting on March 20th. Is that your timeline?
Yeah.
I thought I was,
Maybe take.
so I will take that out.
Yeah, it's. Yeah, April
Do you-
twenty
do you
twenty-one.
want a date?
Well, can we just take it completely? Like, I'm still aiming for April.
So if the mover and seconder agree, we will take out that line completely,
Thank you. Okay.
just so we're not tied to strict, okay? So number two, reorganize the proposed SEBS organizational structure, creating a job description for the director of SEBS position held by the current CBO, Chief Building Official. This will necessitate moving the employment of the Chief Building Official to the municipality of French River. Number three, accept draft proposed 2024 budget amount for 4 municipalities, along with new per household calculations, which includes the addition of a junior bylaw officer and full-time administrator in new revenue projections.
Okay, comfortable? Thank you. You're welcome. All those in favor? Thank you. And again, thank you for a good report. Nice to see Marks-Day Warren back on. All right, there is no correspondence. And I need a resolution to adopt the items contained in the consent agenda, moved by Dave and Renee. All those in favor? Thank you. There are no notices of motion. Okay, so we're to announcement and inquiries, and we'll start from this end. Roger.
Nothing for me today.
Okay. Bob?
Thank you, Mayor Pajot. Last Friday, I had the pleasure of accompanying you to Anmer on an invitation from our member of parliament, Max Serré, to just drop in and chit chat about seniors' needs. And we were told there would be a special minister attending. We found out in the morning through an email from Monsieur Gagnon that the special minister was the prime minister. So it was a very enjoyable afternoon, some candid discussions with him, and altogether it was more like a little town hall meeting, nothing too formal, but it was very enjoyable. And thank you, Madam Mayor, for giving me a call. I very appreciated. And besides that, just the one thing I would like to wish you, Madam Mayor, a very great holiday, very well deserved, and I hope you have while having a relaxing soda that you think about us. Thank you.
I have nothing to add.
No, I don't have anything to add either tonight.
I don't either.
Wow, not too much. Women's Day tomorrow, in Alvin. So all you women out there, come out for a beautiful day. What? The men are invited to do dishes and serve the women. No, I'm just joking. The men are invited to.
It's only an Alvin.
It's in Alvin, but it's for all the communities and any woman that wants to attend. Joanne Violette puts on a great day. It's always fun. There's all sorts of booths there, and then there's a good lunch. And then always followed by some kind of a game. Last year it was mall shopping or something. It was hilarious. We had a ball. So that is open to all women. I believe it starts at 10 o'clock, 10 till 3.
10:30 to 2, and
Oh.
it's open to men and women. It's to the entire community.
Oh,
It's not just open to
so-
women.
Men are welcome too.
They are, I checked that. Somebody asked me that today.
Oh,
So,
so, and that's about it. I think, U15 last weekend won the division, and championship.
Mhm.
So that's, good for, another banner up in our arena. So they did a great job. So congratulations to them. And that's all I have. Enjoy the March break. There's lots of activities for the kids.
yes,
There's on Monday, there's the Easter egg hunt and a pancake breakfast happening. And then there's activities at the library all week.
Yep.
So that's it.
well, you took my announcements, so I'm not going to repeat them. If that's okay. Any members of staff? Seeing none? Flock, yeah, I guess none for today. All right, so we have I need a resolution to resolve into a closed session. Under section 239-2B, personal matters about identifiable individuals, including municipal or local board employees with respect to the selection of public members to be appointed to the Environmental Advisory Committee to fill one vacancy. So mover and a seconder, Dean and Renee. All those in favor? Thank you. We'll be back.
How do you pronounce his last name?
Melancore. Melancore. Yeah. Are we okay? All right, so I need a resolution to resolve into open session. Renee and Dave? All those in favor? Thank you. And we have a resolution coming from the closed session. I'll let Bob speak to it.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I would like to move that we nominate Chris Melancore as a member on the Environmental Advisory Committee.
Thank you. Need a seconder? Dave? All those in favor? Thank you. I need a resolution to adopt confirmation bylaw. Need a mover and a seconder. Dean and Dave? All those in favor? Thank you. And I need a resolution to adjourn. Willie and Roger? All those in favor? Thank you. Have a great evening, everybody, and we'll see you at the next meeting from the pool.